Okay, so we're going to be exploring writing in this term, but it's a fairly flexible definition of writing. I'm looking at writing as really the way we write our lives, or the way we perform our lives, perform our sense of self or our identity. The the actions that we make, the things that we do, that they arise out of a sense of who we are and the world within which we exist. And and each time we do something, we're reinforcing that idea. It's like we're writing our sense of who we are. It's a complicated thing because it's based on this idea of an individual self. And it's usually that sense. It's like a soul and an individual soul and an individual body. And we tend to think of it, or culturally to think of it, as something that's separate. But is it? When you look for it, there's usually nothing there. So consequently, we do things to affirm our existence, to make us know we're here. And most of us unconscious. We operate out of this idea of a self, and the way we function without thinking about it just happens naturally. But when we do something consciously, when we cultivate some form of practice, whether it's Feldenkrais, whether it's writing or playing an instrument, and we reflect on that, there's the possibility to make those unconscious drivers and that unconscious sense of ourselves conscious. And in the process of getting absorbed in something, where we become completely immersed in it, we have this capacity to be present. And when we're present, there's, for me anyway, this sense of where I am or the other, whether it's the environment or whether it's something that I'm interacting with. But it's not me as an individual, it's me as connected, as a part of something that's larger. And that's a particularly compelling thing. So we are looking at writing because, and the use of the hands and the arms, because, well, it's where everything's focused. It's where the mind is focused in our actions and through our hands. And the hands are really interesting in that they're involved in so many functions, so many things that we do. They take up quite a large part of brain space, particularly, across the representations for the hand in the motor cortex across the top of the brain is huge compared to, say, the torso or the legs or the arms. It's massive because there are so many things that we do that use it. And it's an interesting thing. Today we're going to pay attention to the forearms and the hands, and how they connect into the arm, the inside and the outside. And we're going to write a little bit. In fact, did you bring some pen and paper? You should get that because we'll do a little writing exercise. And the exercises are completely, only do them if you want to. And each week I'll set you a little task if you want to do that as well, so that we can explore this. That's the question. How does our structure and the possibilities and limitations within our structure influence the way our sense of ourselves in the world? Because for a dog or a fly, the world is a very different place. They perceive it because their eyes are different. The smell is completely different between a dog experiencing the world and us experiencing the world. So, what if we have limitations in our hands? If we tighten ourselves unnecessarily and we restrict the range of movements that we can do, how does that shape the narrative that we have about ourselves and the way we approach the things that we do, the things that we create. So we'll explore this idea of how we actually use the hands and the arms. You know, and you can apply, well, I'm going to focus exercises on writing, but you could just as easily do it with a musical instrument or some other thing where you use your hands to do something, where you're in effect, writing yourself, creating yourself. Let's just look at some of the structures here in the hands. It's a funny thing. It's always, you know, when I studied anatomy, it was always easier to look at the spine and the head and the torso. And for some reason, I sort of would avoid really going deeply into the hands and forearms, feet and legs. I don't know why. It just happens. Maybe it looks complicated or something. But it's such an interesting thing. Let me share my screen and I'll show you some pictures. Now, yeah. Wrist abduction. One of the things I want to show you is that the wrist is a hollow sort of structure. The bones of the wrist, the 8 bones here, cuboid bones, they form a bit of a U shape. You see that between here and here, and the pisiform bone here. There's this little hollow in here. And the muscles of the forearm, they all pass through this little hollow, and then it's surrounded by this really tough fibrous sheet around here to hold everything in place. This is one of the cardinal movements of the hands and the wrist that we'll explore. And this is moving the hand, you know, out sideways, abduction they call it. Generally, movements that, you know, like these muscles here, they're on the outside of the elbow. This is a right hand, right arm. The ones that extend the arm, they connect up here onto the elbow bone, and the ones that draw it in, they connect on the inside of the elbow here. And it has a curious thing. So these extensors here, let's just look at this. Notice they're connecting to the outside edge of the humerus here. And these muscles here, what have we got? Extensor digitorum. Now this one here, so these ones extend right through to the fingers here, to the forefingers, through these common tendons through here. And if we look at this is now, and it's funny because the bones, some of them, this one's called extensor carpi. That's carpi relates to the carpal bones here in the wrist. So the function of this one is to extend. You see, it just joins down here. It doesn't go the full length of the fingers. It's just to extend the wrist at the little finger here. But some of these muscles in here, they do both. They extend the wrist because they have a connection here at the carpal bones, and they also have these connections into the fingers. Let's find that. And there's a very good reason for that. Wrist extension, no, and finger extension. Here we are. Oh, it's flexion, so, or let's look at it from flexion. Now, so turn this around. So there's this muscle here. Once again, see how this muscle sits within that little groove here within the wrist. And flexor, this is the flexor digitorum, means that digits relates to the fingers, and this is the superficial one. There's a deeper one than this. But if we go, there's another muscle that's the same that will extend. Let's have a look here. Where are we? Flexion, wrist flexion. See many more muscles here. These ones just join down onto the wrist, but they have this connection at the wrist here, so it's also connecting and pulling through the wrist as well as the fingers. Now, in order to do the other movement, where just the fingers curl, that requires the movement, in order to do, like you're pulling these muscles on the flexors, which are all extending, they're joining onto the inside of the forearm here. In order to do it so that the hand stays where it is, and it's just the fingers, it means you need to also contract the flexors at the same time. Now, where are we? Yeah, here, this is what I want. So to do this, you're using these flexor muscles here in the front, but you need the extensor muscles that join in the back here onto the outside of the wrist here to hold the hand steady. And this is one of the complicating things about the forearm, is that we have this idea that the muscles act together. They work together so that you have some muscles at the back, the extensors, maybe it's stabilizing this part of the hand, and then the muscles in the front, the flexors, are moving the fingers and pulling it. So it's the combination of these two movements in all directions that gives us this tremendous flexibility with the hand and the capacity to move it in all sorts of directions. But that's also the complication, because if you have tension in your forearms all the time, because when we're often when we're worrying about things or when we're thinking about things, our whole body will embody that. So if we're worried by something, we'll often hold ourselves as if we're actually responding to it. We don't actually do the movement, but it's just there as a pattern. And so many of those actions that we have that relate to our state of mind, involve the arms and the forearms. And the thing with these tiny little muscles in here that pronate the wrist here or the forearm is they're fatigable. And so if you have the flexors and the extensors in the forearm working the whole time, that's going to influence, the smoothness with which you can draw a circle, or make delicate movements, or play something really peaceful on a piano. It'll influence, how finely you can slice vegetables or do everything else. So learning to sense and isolate what these muscles are is really interesting. The other factor is that we tend to, favor, the thumb and first two fingers, and often, the little two fingers are complicated and we often harbor tension there. But look at this, the thing with the forearm and the arm is let's get another. Yeah, notice these two bones here and how they rotate. The ulna here, that's the elbow, the point there. It moves, this is called the olecranon here. It's got this little hole in here in the humerus bone that it sits into when we straighten the arm. And this is the point where the extensors connect, and this is the point on the inside of the arm where most of the flexors are. Now let's go up here. often we're tightening parts of ourselves we don't need. Now, to flex the elbow, the upper arm bone here, the humerus, it only has muscle, it's muscles that flex it like this, and we have muscles that extend it. It doesn't rotate. The rotation of the upper arm comes from the muscles in the shoulder here, and also in the muscles in the forearm that we just saw here. Let's just look at extension. You see here the triceps, 3 heads, here, here, and then down in the arm here. Connects down onto that, the olecranon here, that little bone on the ulna here. And actually, there's one thing about the flexors here. So it's these two things working together. And once again, you'll have times where you'll use both of them in this selective way. One will stabilize, when you're letting something down slowly or lifting something up slowly, you get both the muscles in the back and the front moving together. But if in a resting place, both the flexors and the extensors are holding on, it just makes you feel uncomfortable. Yeah. So, moving the arm in, we use these muscles up in the shoulder like this to extend the arms in a straight way like this. The deltoid here, this big muscle around the outside, different parts to it. So these fibers here will be involved in pulling the arm out to the side, whereas these fibers in here, they'll pull the shoulder back. These fibers here, they're going to rotate, also rotate the arm in, just due to the way that, where it connects on the outside of the arm. So when this contracts, it also rolls the arm in. So, we have all these degrees of freedom through our arms. You consider a plane. A plane has two wings and a tail wing. And it has these little ailerons, these little airfoils that lift up at the front and the back of the wings and the top and the bottom. And different combinations of those things lifting up will create all these different movements. And it's the same with us. But, they need to be coordinated. That's the main thing. So in the forearm, that's the thing I want you to remember today. We'll go more into the anatomy, but I don't want to show too much now because I'll take too long. Maybe. Yeah. And once again, these renderings, they give a it's not really an accurate, the whole body is involved in this. And really, the arm is an expression of the width of the body. The legs are an expression of length. The arms are an expression of width. So really, it's the whole side out to the sides that the arms explore. So, when we're moving the hand today, we need to think of the whole side here. And we're going to tease this out over the 10 weeks. But look at how this wraps around from the collarbone here and round onto the spine of the shoulder blade as well from above. And this muscle here, the trapezius, that, we contract, it has all fibers in different directions, so that if you contract the fibers down here, it'll pull the shoulder in one way. If you contract them here, it'll pull them in another way. And if you contract them here, it'll pull in another way. So, it doesn't have to work together. You can pull different parts and it can work together with other parts. But today we're going to look at, in particular, this relationship with the two bones of the forearm here, the space in between there. We have the similar situation in the two bones of the lower leg, and a similar situation in the bones of the ribs. Parallel bones that move together. These ones can rotate. That's their unique thing. The hand, as we extend further away from the midline, it becomes more differentiated. It becomes more differentiated, and when there's more degrees of freedom, it requires more thought to gain control. Now, did you bring pen and paper or something like that? Get your paper and pencil now. And I want you to think of a word. You can think of 3 words, actually. It could be any word. It could be and, or the, or love, or whatever. Anticipation, any word. But you'll know the word when it comes, because if you just sit there and then the word will come to you, and then write it down and just notice the process of what you do. So write 3 words down in that way. Okay? Do that now. Good. Now, how was that? What was the experience of writing that? When you write, how tense is your forearm? Could you, this time, I'm going to get you to write those 3 words again, but I want you to look at the word and consider, my first one was wall. So I'm going to consider wall. And as I consider wall, I'm going to write it. But how easily can you immerse yourself in the experience of the word, so that the process of writing it is the process of creating it, the concept that it represents. Can you try that again and see your capacity to allow that means every stroke you make, is a representation, is an experience of that concept. Do that write your 3 words again. Yeah. Now, how was that? Was that different? Do you have, what is the capacity to make fine adjustments in the quality of the way you're using your pencil or pen or implement? Was it really, could you feel, in the process of writing the word, when you may think of a particular quality, were you able to allow the hand to shape itself? To move slightly differently so that would be expressed? Or do you find that much of the way you actually use your hand to write is, there's habitual elements to it? So let's explore, that's the interesting thing. Notice this time, when you, just as you're holding your pen, for instance, is there more tension on one side of the hand, on, on the thumb side with those fingers than the little fingers? Or, what are the little fingers doing? And when you do a circular letter and you have to move your, your fingers in a circle towards and away from each other, and when you do, and when you do long letters, what's the quality? I've had fairly florid handwriting always, and I notice when I'm doing it that, I'll do T's or H's or G's, and they'll have this random big thing. And it's like I go unconscious at that point. I can't actually feel it. So could you write them one more time, and then we'll go into the lesson, and we'll do this again at the end. And this time, pay attention to, how evenly you write. And the different quality of doing circular letters, and doing up and down letters, and the process of moving your hand gradually. Yeah, try it one more time. Yeah. Is that different that time? What do you notice? Can you try one more time? Last time, I promise. This time, I want you to see, can you keep the whole hand, both sides of the hand, thumb side, little fingers side, and also the elbow, soft? Keep them soft and open as you write. It's almost as if the concept is flowing through from the, your body out through your arm, and you keep the whole hand relaxed as you do it. Try one more time doing that. Even you may not even be able to write it because your hand is so floppy. That's fine. Interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? Just, it took millions of years, millions of years to learn to do that, to be able to make that really fine little circle, to develop that sort of control. And it takes us as children ages. Remember all those times with the tracing letters and upstrokes and downstrokes, through a page when we were young, just to get control of the hand. Well, now we're going to start to explore, and that's where this imbalance between the flexors and extensors in the forearm and any tensions through our body really starts to pay off. So let's explore that now. Let's play with these cardinal movements of the hand and in different orientations, and just notice the effect that it has on the whole body and then on our ability to write. And, we're going to... We're going to do a little bit of this writing in the beginning each time. And, oh goodness me, look at the time. But I'll be more brief about it. But there's so many interesting things to consider in the way you use your hands. So look, could you lie down on your back? Oh yeah, that's good. Yes. Lie down on your back with your arms by your side. Notice your length from your head right down to your feet. The way you're moving as you're breathing. And notice the sensations in your hands and forearms. Do some fingers or one side of your forearm, does that stand out more than the others? And is it different in each arm? You'll notice the way your arms and your hands are lying on the floor. Do they lie in the same way, or is one hand turned out more or turned in? And are your fingers curled, or are they extended? What's the resting state of your arm? And just take your left hand, hold on to the bottom of the right elbow. Just feel the bottom of the right elbow. There's two bony bumps on either side. And roll your right hand in and out. And if you hold a little bit lower on the forearm, you'll feel when you're rolling the arm out, the thumb out away from the body, it's the muscles on the outside of the forearm that connect onto the outside of the humerus, the upper arm bone. And when you roll your hand in toward the body, so it's palm down, it's the muscles on the inside, the flexors. So just roll that. And you can do that through the arm here without involving the upper arm. And it's the outside bone, the radius it's called. It has a round head that attaches to the bottom of the upper arm bone, and that's rotating. Now leave that, let both arms down by your side, and just sense have your hands palm up, and your elbows, or the base of the upper arm, it's parallel with the floor, parallel with your pelvis. Notice the way your arms lie there. When you roll the hand over, roll the hands over again, roll it so the palms are down, and then roll it out. The wrist is turning. So at the elbow, the bones are still more or less side by side, parallel with the floor. But at the wrist, they turn over. So if you have your hands now, so the thumb is toward the ceiling, at the elbow, the bones are parallel with the floor in the forearm, and at the wrist, they're pointing up toward the ceiling. The radius bone is sitting on top of the other, or the long bone in the lower arm, the ulnar. Now just stay here with your hands facing in toward the torso. And just move the hand at the wrist. So wrist stays where it is. You're just moving the hand and the fingers in toward the hips and then away. So you're flexing and extending your wrist. Just a gentle movement, doesn't have to be far. Don't push it or go as far as you can. But feel as you do that, the feeling through the forearm. The muscles on the inside of the forearm, the flexors, and the muscles on the outside, the extensors. How do they move? And consider the thumb and the little finger, the width of the hand and the width of the wrist. The channel between the two bones, right through to the elbow. Now keep the hands pointing down, facing, the palms are facing toward the torso or the legs. And now just move the fingers. So you make a loose fist and then open them and straighten them. The thumb will extend away from the hand and then make a fist. I notice to do this, you're using the same flexors, but at the same time you're using the extensors on the back of the forearm to hold the hand still so that you're just moving the fingers. And once again, notice the quality of the movement through all of the fingers. Do it slowly. So you can feel through the full width and depth of the forearm what is actually happening. And now leave that movement, just rest there for a moment. Notice how that feels. You know what? It's this ability to stop and do nothing in the forearm. Notice, can your arms and your forearms, your hand and your fingers, can they just lie there? Or do you feel work going on in the forearm? Once again, move the whole hand at the wrist in toward the hips and then away. So you're just bending the hand at the wrist. And keep the hands in. So you've flexed the wrist now. Fingers are pointing in toward the hips. And now make a loose fist and then open the fingers. In this position with your hands flexed, what is the capacity of your hands to move smoothly? And notice with your hand in this slightly more awkward position, are you tightening up in other places? Like in your shoulders or your neck? You're really making it an easy movement. Well, now move the hand in the other direction. So you point the fingers away from your body now. The palms are facing down toward the feet. And now make a loose fist and let it relax. And try to do this with the minimum of effort. So, notice what's happening through the rest of your body. And just let everything relax so that you could focus your attention on how evenly you can move each of your fingers. And then leave that. Rest there again. So you have your hand palm down. Notice the feeling through your forearm. And in this position, lift the whole hand at the wrist and fingers up toward the ceiling and then down, and push it down so you'll lift your wrist a little bit and then let the wrist down and then lift. So you're moving the hand at the wrist. What's it like in this orientation? In a sense that through the little finger and the thumb, and through the full width of the wrist and the elbow, so you think of the space between those two bones. And now keep your hand up. And now make a loose fist and open and close the fingers here. And notice how each finger moves. And make it a small movement, easy. And then move it down, so you flex the wrist, and now move the fingers into a loose fist. And then let it go. What's the difference here? And then leave that and rest. And move your hand side to side as if you're sort of feeling the floor, sliding your fingers and your palms across the floor at the wrist. So the wrist stays where it is, it's just the hand sliding. So the muscles to control the fingers, they're up in the forearms here. And some of the muscles will control all the fingers. And there's several muscles that control the thumb. The thumb has different ranges of movement because of its ability to oppose the other fingers. And the little finger and the index finger both have their own muscles. And you're using them now in order to move your hand in this way, to abduct and abduct the hand. Leave that for a moment, just rest there. Now roll the hands over so the palms are up. Not at the shoulder, but roll from the forearm. Just move your thumbs out. You supinate, it's called, your forearm. So your hands are toward the ceiling. And now notice how this feels to lie here. Maybe more comfortable, maybe less comfortable. And then move the hand at the wrist here. Move the fingers and the hand up toward the ceiling, and then Then press the nails into the floor. So you're moving the hand at the wrist. And then leave that, and now just make a loose fist with the hand. Move the fingers. And notice, in order to move the fingers, it means you're using the extensors to stabilize the hand and the flexors to move the fingers, but you're already using the extensors to have the forearm rolled out. What's the feeling here? And now flex the hand at the wrist, lift the fingers toward the ceiling, and now make a loose fist. And notice, what's the feeling here? And now extend the hand at the wrist and make a fist. And then leave that and rest. Let everything go through your hand and your arm. And notice how the rest of you has been affected. Now we move the hand, and usually the rest of the body is involved. Certainly the upper arms and the shoulders, but certainly the breath, the ribs. So, think of the width of the hand from the little finger up to the thumb, and the width through the forearm, and the width of the shoulder, the depth of the shoulder from front to back. And now could you lift your arms up toward the ceiling, palms facing each other. Just lift your arms up toward the ceiling so they're above the shoulder. Your hands are pointing toward the ceiling. So you can feel the weight of the arms on the floor now. You could notice, is there a difference between each arm and shoulder? And in this position here, make that loose fist. And open the hand, point the fingers toward the ceiling, and then make the loose fist. Feel the way each of the fingers move here, from the thumb and first finger through to the little finger. And consider in this orientation the feeling in your forearm, and through the upper arm, down into the shoulder. So think from your little finger, down the arm through to the back of the underarm. And from the thumb and first finger, down the front of the arm, down to the front of the underarm. And you could notice the shape of your hands, the shape of the palms. They're round, aren't they? Consider the shape of your rib cage on each side. Now move your hands at the wrists. So you move the You keep the wrists where they are, but you move the fingers toward each other. So the hands are, you could look at your palms and then lift them up and move them out. You know, and think of when you're doing this in real life, what this, you know, what you might be saying or doing with your hands. And notice this movement through the little fingers and the thumbs and first fingers, through all of the fingers. You know, if you had 5 paintbrushes, one on each finger, and there was a curved bit of paper above you, what sort of line would you draw now with each finger? You know, would you be able to draw a line that was peaceful and spacious? Well, keep your hands in, and now make that loose fist. And then open the fingers out with the hands in this orientation. And once again, imagine if your fingers were paintbrushes, what would be the quality of the line that they created? Move the fingers out so the hands are reaching, you know, out. As if you're, you know, feeding the 5,000. Here it is, you're saying. And now in this position, open and close your hands. Feeling the way each finger moves. You know, to get more stillness through the fingers, what do you have to soften through the rest of your body? We'll leave that. Let your arms down and rest. Roll your arms in and out from the shoulder. Well, you know, you can do it from the hands as well, but do this, focus on the shoulder doing this. Notice that as you're rolling your arms, you're tightening. When you roll them out, you're tightening the back of the shoulders. When you roll them in, you're tightening the front. See if you can do it, allowing your arms, your hands to be relaxed. And now do it with your hands. How they coordinate together. And how you can sense the whole hand and the whole arm and the whole shoulder rolling. Now leave that. It's curious, isn't it? How just rolling the arms and the hands influences the rest of the body. Well, lift your arms up toward and your hands toward the ceiling again, but this time roll the arms from the shoulders and from the hands. Gently, not as far as you can, but so that they can function. Like you're feeling the quality of something with your palms. And now keep your palms facing out. And in this position with your palms out, notice how your arms feel. Make a loose fist and then open the fingers again. And just notice how in this orientation, each of the fingers can move. As if you were the operator of a carillon, one of those bell towers that has lots of bells. And you have a very small one and you can operate 10 bells with your 10 fingers. How delicately will you be able to ring them? And now move the hand at the wrist, so move the hand out and in. And sense that at the wrist, the width of the wrist and the width of the whole arm. Through the forearm. And stay with your hands, your palms up toward the ceiling. And now move the fingers. Open and close them. Like a flower opening. And then move the hand in the other direction. And open and close the hand. Perhaps as if you're a god or a goddess in the clouds, releasing rain. And then leave that. Let your arms down by your side. It's interesting to consider the fingers. The muscle for the fingers is up in the forearm, up to the elbow. It's like you could think of your fingers right through to the elbow. And now move your hand out to the side. Move your arms out to shoulder height. Do that a few times and feel the movement in the shoulder. It's the shoulder muscles that are lifting the arm up like that. Feel the way your shoulder blades move and the muscles in the torso. And what happens in your hand? Can you keep your hand, the width of the hand and forearm, receptive? And then keep your hands out at shoulder height, perhaps with the little fingers on the ground and the thumbs in the air. And take your right or your left hand and feel the elbow. Notice the way those bones are oriented now with your hand out to the side. It's different, isn't it? They're more sideways. Roll the hand here. Pronate and then supinate the hand, just at the forearm. Not the upper arm. Just make a delicate movement with the hand, turning the palm down and then rotating it over. And notice, what's the difference with your arm out in this orientation? And now involve the shoulder. Move the hands as if the hands are, reaching towards something or turning something. So you feel the movement in the forearm and then, through the upper arm into the shoulder. Feel the way your collarbone and your shoulder blades are sliding. And perhaps what is happening through the rest of your torso. Now keep your arm palm up, your hand palm up, easy distance. And in this position here, bend the hand at the wrist. Lift the fingers up toward the ceiling and then down, and maybe you could push them into the floor a little bit. That would lift your wrist a little. And then bend it at the wrist again. And notice this through each of the fingers, how each of them moves. As if each of them could draw a line or, be drawn across an instrument and it would make a sound. And consider how peaceful would that sound be. And now stay with your hands just resting there, palms up like that. And now close the fingers and open them. Once again, considering each of the fingers so that they all move with peace, slowly. And of course, to do that, you need peace through the forearm, right through the whole wrist and elbow. Peace in the shoulder. And peace in the heart through the rest of your body. And now bend your wrist here, bend the hand up again and do the same thing, moving the fingers here, peacefully. Just considering what you can relax, what you can soften in order that each of the fingers can make an expressive, peaceful gesture, smooth and calm. And then move your hand in the other direction. So you extend the hand at the wrist and now make a loose fist and opening and closing all of the fingers. So you're opening and closing in the whole side of your body. You sense the space in the palms and the space in the wrists. And the space inside the whole side of your body. And then leave that, just leave your arms out to the side. And roll your hands so that the little finger is on the ground and the thumb is up. And now move the forearms, move the hands at the wrists. So fingers point down in the direction of the feet and then fingers point up toward the head. The wrist stays where it is. It's just a movement of the hand at the wrist. And sense what is happening right through the body, right through your forearm in particular. And through the front and back of the hand, front and back of the shoulder. The little finger through to the thumb. And then stay with your fingers down, so the palms are in the direction of your torso, and now move the fingers. Make a loose fist and then open them. Sense what is the difference here. How can you generate that peaceful quality of movement here? And then extend the hands in the other direction. Do the same thing with your hands facing away from you now. Perhaps as if you're Samson, preparing to place his hands on the pillars of the temple. Just moving the fingers, feeling the full width of the arm, full width of the hand and forearm, and the whole side. And move the fingers here and sense what you're able to feel. And leave that. Let your arms go back down by your side and rest there. Your arms are an expression of width. Feel the volume of the whole of each side of your torso, and the volume of each arm. And now bend your elbows. Bend the arm at the elbow so you move your hands up toward the ceiling. And the elbows stay where they are, and feel how you're contracting the muscles of the upper arm now, flexors and extensors, and what's happening in the hands and wrists. Well, stay with your fingers pointing up toward the ceiling, palms facing each other. And just move the hand sideways, fingers still pointing toward the ceiling, but the thumb comes closer to the floor, then it sweeps over and the little finger moves over toward the floor. And sense on each side of the forearm. And how do the hands move? Are they moving together? You know, if you had a pencil balanced between each finger, each thumb and each first finger, you know, would it be easy to hold them there? Well, leave that movement. Just have your hands facing each other. Once again, make a loose fist and then open the hands. Notice here in this orientation with your elbows bent, how it feels. You know, are you doing anything that you don't need to do? Are you tightening yourself in your chest or your legs? You know, and as you soften through your face and the back of your neck, does it become easier to feel each finger moving smoothly and maybe how the fingers of each hand can move together? Well, leave the fingers pointing up and now move the hand at the wrist. So you move the hand and the fingers toward each other and then up to the ceiling and then away. The wrist stays where it is. It's just a movement of the hand at the wrist. And notice it through the full width. You know, as if you were drawing your fingers through the fabric of a silk curtain or something that felt lovely. You know, sense the feeling of the fabric right through the hand with each finger. And then keep your hands out and not curl the fingers. Make a loose fist and hold this fabric. And then let it slide off your hand. And then move your hands in and do the same thing. And then leave that, hold your hands up toward the ceiling, but have your palms facing down toward the feet. You know, how is this? At the elbow, the bones are flat, and at the wrist, they're twisted. So the thumb is on the inside. The thumb, or the radius, it's called, the bone of the forearm that attaches near the thumb. But at the elbow, it's on the outside. Well, move your hands at the wrists up and down and just notice with the twisted forearm, how does it feel? And have your hands facing up toward the ceiling, and now move the fingers into a little fist and then open them. Sense the way each of the fingers move. And do it slowly so that you can really notice through the rest of your body anything you could soften that would make this movement more expressive. And then move your hands down and do the same thing. Sense the palm of the hand here and the underarm. And then let it go and rest here. Have the arms up at the ceiling, pointing up to the ceiling. Once again, notice how this is now. Just loosely curl your fingers into a fist here and then open them. Feel how each finger can move. And now bend your arms so that as if you're standing near a wall and you have your hands on the wall, the elbows and the palms facing up. So your elbows are above your shoulders and your hands are sort of parallel with the floor, the hands and forearms, palms up. And in this position, open and close the hand. Make that fist and sense the whole width of the hand and the whole width of the wrist and forearm. Now that you're using the muscles of the upper arm to suspend the arm here, how is this? And then move the hand up and down at the wrist. Notice it, the inside and outside. And leave the hands extended so the fingers are down toward the floor, and now make a fist with your hand extended like that. What is the feeling? What would you be doing with your arms in this position? You could be holding onto a tray of food, the most exquisite food, and passing it up onto a platform to some people who are having a dinner party in an elevated place. And then move the hands down and, so that they're facing down toward the feet. And now open and close the hands here. And think, what can you soften? What can you drop to make this easier? And then let your arms down above your head, wherever they're comfortable. Maybe you can't have your arms above your head. You have to have them out at shoulder height. That's fine. Have them wherever you can, but above your head. And notice as everything settles into the floor. The width of your hands, space between the bones of all the fingers and the bones of the forearms. And just move your fingers here into a little fist and then open, and maybe move your toes. A small movement just of the toes and the fingers. And, notice the width of the hands and the width of the feet. So slowly. So you have time to feel the little fingers. As if you're drawing a picture with one movement of your finger, you're able to make a mark on a bit of paper, maybe that's moving. And each mark that you make is like a leaf in a tree or something. And now leave that. Move your hands at the wrist here. Palms are up. So you're lifting the hand up and then maybe pushing the fingers down. How is it with your arms above your head? And stay with your hands up, and now in this position, move the fingers into a little fist and then open. And then move the hand in the opposite direction, do the same thing, which is curious because you're probably lifting the wrist to do this, so that when you're curling your fingers up, you'll lower the hand down. And then leave that. Keep your arms above your head. And now roll your hands in and out. Roll the forearm. Maybe you feel that in your shoulders and underarms too. You could do a little movement with your legs as well, rolling them in and out with your arms. Just a small one. But mostly we're focusing on the arms and the hands and the forearms, how they roll on the floor. And where can you soften in your neck and your face, your ribs and your pelvis, to make this easy. And stay with your palms facing out. And just make a loose fist here. And let them go, feeling how each of the fingers can move. And then move the hand at the wrist. And now keep the hands pointing up in the direction your head is pointing, and now move the fingers here. Notice how it is there. And then move the hands out, so the hands, palms are pointing down toward the feet, and now move the fingers. And then leave that. Let your arms down by your side and rest there. Maybe you have a sense now that the fingers don't just hang off the end of the hand, but they extend right through the arm into your torso. You know how your forearms lie now. And how the rest of your body is influenced when you pay such close attention to your hand. Well, when you're ready, open your eyes. Notice the quality of what you see. And then slowly roll over onto your side and come up to stand. And notice how it is. Whoa. How everything settles. Notice now the feeling of the little finger and the back of the underarms and shoulders, and the thumbs and first fingers in the front. Space within your arms and forearms. Yeah. And walk now. And notice, maybe it's not just the width of your hands you're feeling. Maybe there's a sense of the width of your feet as well. But notice as you move, the width and the depth of your body.